How do you deal with relational conflict, especially marital conflict, at this time when we are going stir crazy in our apartments and our homes? One would be take the Bob the Builder hat off. For me, this one's very relevant. I'll often try and fix it. Fix my wife, fix my kid, fix my friends too quickly. Fix their issue. I feel like that's loving. Well, at times it can be, but more often than not, it actually is simply a matter of listening. It's important to listen is the second one because the person wants to be heard and wants you to slow down and empathize with them. Secondly would be really getting them to figure out what is triggering them at this time. Thirdly would be making an emotional bid. John Gottman, the chief marital expert in the U.S. right now, talks about how simply going out and saying whatever, even if it's a bird on a tree, hey, what do you think about that bird on the tree? Isn't it beautiful, the sound it's making? That helps a type of connection that goes to the emotional gut level of a couple that's really struggling. Fourthly, ask why. Ask why one is struggling so much and respond with community. I got a close friend who he has some close buddies and his wife has some close buddies, and they hold each other accountable when they're going through a tough fight. And oftentimes it'll be his wife's friends will be sticking up for him, taking his side, because you would think that they'd automatically take her side, and his buddies would be taking his wife's side in issues. This was a way so that they could balance without type of bias going on when they would get into conflict. And they still do it to this day, and it helps them tremendously in their relationship. What are some more?
Well, for me, Stuart, it has been very helpful to not get into arguments and verbal sparring and debates in my marriage. Instead, it's been very helpful for me to be able to honestly communicate that hurt and then wait for my wife to respond. But for me to start pointing out why it hurt, how badly it hurt, why it was so unjustified, why it was so mean for her to say that or do that, I find to just simply add fuel to the fire and escalate the problem. So, to be able to honestly say, not to sweep stuff away, but to be able to honestly look her in the face and say, that really hurt, zip my lip, and now the ball's in her court. How's she going to respond? Secondly, what's crucial for me in dealing with marital conflict is to remind myself how badly I want there to be peace in this marriage, in this home. And if there's going to be peace, I am going to have to give up a lot of what I want. A lot of my dreams, a lot of my priorities, a lot of the way I would like to spend my time, our money. I've got to give that up. And I can't just drive it all into the ground in terms of this is what I want and this is the way it's going to be. No, there's got to be humility. There's got to be real compromise. And I've got to give up a lot. Why? Because I want there to be peace. And I just am amazed at how many couples make the decision, no. To drive all of these points and get them my way is more important than peace. I disagree. And then thirdly, I think it's so easy to put together the picture of the perfect spouse in my head and then to be very, very upset with my wife because she doesn't live up to that perfect picture. I have to make a decision. Am I going to tear up the picture of the perfect spouse and live with a real wife? Or am I going to tear up my wife in order to live with the picture of the perfect spouse? It's an easy decision. It's hard, though, to live it out because of my expectations, because of the way I would like things to go. And yet I have found that that's a very important part of living together and really allowing the love to flow, the peace to grow. For marriage, in many ways, is an emotional dance. And so I've got to figure out how to make that dance work.
Speaking of a dance, being more so people perhaps of the neck up, maybe we're not so much connected with our emotions as our wives are. Although some men are, for sure. It doesn't have to be a stereotype. How have you grown in your emotions, your ability to relate in that kind of way? Because as an apologist, as a pastor, we're always reading, always thinking. But it's hard to feel those type of emotions that they want connection with at times. How do you think through that one? Or how do you feel through that one?
Well, I haven't done it very well. I've had to learn a lot in that area. But an analogy that's helped me is when you got off the bus after being bullied, what was your mother's first response? What was my first response? It was not to go after the bus driver and tell him he should do a better job keeping order on the bus. Our first response was not to call the principal or your teacher and complain. Our first response was not to call the parent of the bully and chew them out. Instead, our first response was to wrap our arms around you and to comfort you after you'd been bullied. Now, we're all married to a little kid who got bullied, who got hurt, who's just grown up. A lot of those same hurts, a lot of those same insecurities are there. And so I have found it helpful to try and understand the way my wife's been hurt in her life. And that slows me down when it comes to making judgments, pronouncements, and it puts me more in touch with my feelings for her, for she really is the little kid who's been hurt, the teenager who was badly hurt, just all grown up.
Yeah, for me, I think it's also a matter of getting underneath. Emotionally focused therapy has helped a lot, not just cognitive behavioral therapy, which is challenging your thoughts, but also emotionally focused, which is, okay, you might be tremendously angry at this moment, but it could be fear underneath. So an analogy is, look, you holding up a desk. What is underneath the desk? And a lot of it has to do with perhaps childhood fears, fears around your parents, fears around your stock portfolio, whatever it might be that might be seeping into your marriage in a way that's causing this to be a deeply rooted emotional feeling that has to be dealt with, rather than just saying this is a communication issue. No, there's powerful emotions behind it, and labeling those I've found to be so crucial. At this quarantine time, another little technique that's helped is my wife and I will be talking, and if we start to get frustrated over somebody leaving a dish out or leaving the cereal box out or not picking up the poopy diaper in the room over, we will have a maid, which could be male or female, Fred or Sally, who left out the diaper or left out the cereal box, and we'll blame them instead of the other. I think the blame game is so harmful for a lot of marriages. And speaking in the I, this is how I feel, this is what I did, assuming responsibility rather than just always pointing the finger, is crucial. Another one is playing catch instead of ping pong. So often I'll be quick with my emotions to just be firing back, trying to spike ping pong balls back with criticism, with attacks, as opposed to let's play catch in the backyard, hold the football a little bit, think before we talk, and then throw it back. Those are a couple thoughts on relationships, marriages. How are you growing in them at this time? We know that domestic abuse is on the rise in a scary kind of way during these past few months of quarantine. So is divorce. So very crucial to think through how can we be growing in these areas. But the final one and most important is hydrate. Hydrate daily. And what I mean by that is read about Christ. What is Christ's call in your life? Ephesians chapter 5, in terms of the whole goal of marriage is to make one another better. That's exactly what God does for us. He loves us in that kind of way. So how are you loving your spouse better this week?